Welcome to the Chasing Greatness podcast. I'm so glad you are with us this week. We are doing everything we can to help you be great. One of the things we talk about all the time is that chasing greatness is not just about maximizing our potential, but it really is about helping other people. And today we have a guest with us that I'm so excited she's agreed to join us. She is maybe my favorite teacher now. My wife doesn't teach anymore, so you still do. And so Susan Barber is with us today. And let me tell you just a little bit about Susan, and then we're going to jump into a conversation together. Susan, I've known her for, 25, maybe longer, almost 30 years now. We've known each other for a long time. Our families have been great friends. And Susan was a teacher here in our county for, a decade or so. You taught here, and she was a few years ago, I believe 2017, you were named the teacher of the year in the county. And for context, we have over 1,200 teachers, and so you're a pretty big deal around here. And so you win the award, you stay another year or two, and then you just up and left and moved into the city of Atlanta. And so maybe we'll get into that. But welcome, good. Susan, to our podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today. I love your work and what you do. So,
well, I love anytime we get a chance to help teachers, and so we'll do some of that today as well. But it's summertime right now, and so maybe this is one of your favorite times of year to be a teacher.
So today's my first day of summer. So I work the whole month of June, doing some work for College Board. So today's my first day of summer. So still totally relaxing, talking about teaching, but this is a good way to spend the first day.
You're talking about teaching. So
love it.
That's good. So let's go back. Let's rewind your tape. You could have done a lot of things with your life. You're very talented. You have done a lot of things with your life, but at one point you made a decision to be a teacher, and you've been on this journey for a long time, decades now. You've been teaching. Who inspired you to be a teacher, or what inspired you to be a teacher? Tell me your teacher story.
Yeah, so I would say my high school English teacher, and I'm an English teacher now.
You are an English teacher, that's right.
And so I would say my high school English teacher inspired me. I think you see this in a lot of teachers. Whatever discipline they gravitate to and end up teaching, whether it be elementary or really a content area in high school, the majority of those times, I would say that teacher will point back to their high school English teacher or their high school physics teacher or an elementary school teacher, and that's why they chose that path. So I think for me, my high school English teacher, and so to give you some context, I graduated from high school in Alabama in 1983. So we were kind of old school back then, like none of this building up confidence and
you're not a millennial kid.
Correct. And you miss a comma in your paper and you make an F. That's the way it went back then. And so everybody went into Miss Roby's room, me included, slightly terrified. And that wasn't really a bad thing. And I think Miss Roby drew out in me things that I didn't even know were in me. Yeah. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to look at young people who can't even see what's in them and the potential they have. And I want to help draw that out. I want to be a piece in that, in their life and on their journey. And like you said, I have done several different things along the way, but teaching has just always called me back.
Yeah.
And now I'm here. Yeah. So I'm all in.
Well, you've had these opportunities. Let's speak to that for a second, because you do stuff with College Board. You're
correct.
You're a big deal with College Board, the literature person for the country, I think.
Yes.
You're helping with all that. So that's... You've graded AP stuff at the highest level. You do all these things, and you've had opportunities through the years to do other things. You've done some other things, but you've always kept a foot in the classroom, and even now you have all these opportunities. You have had opportunities in the last year or two to do other things, and yet you stay in the classroom. Can you talk to the power of staying in your calling? Use the word calling. Speak to that.
I really think it's the way our education system is set up is not really in the best interest of having the best teachers in the classroom, because typically what happens is when teachers are really good at their jobs, they're promoted on up. But I mean, we need the best teachers working with
the
students,
kids. Yeah.
right, and not being promoted on up. And so I would say probably when I was still at Northgate in this county, 7 years ago or so, I intentionally had to make a decision. Am I going to move on up? And that's where, honestly, in our current system, more money is. That's where more respect and admiration is from climbing that ladder. So I had to make the choice, am I going to move up, or am I just really going to follow my heart and say, I'm good in the classroom. Why would I want to leave the classroom? And so I decided I am going to stay in the classroom, and I really want to keep one foot in the classroom until I retire. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm sticking to that. And I really want to encourage other teachers who feel like they want to move up, or they should move up, because that's just the way our country works. You keep promoting up. And so I want to say to teachers, like, you don't have to move up to make a difference. Like, sometimes, we make the most difference at, quote, the entry level positions. And so let's really lean into that and think about, how can I just serve students in front of me?
Yeah, that's good. There's an old Bible verse that says, what does it profit if a man or woman, if you gain the whole world and forfeit your soul? And I think there's a little bit of a connection here, because if I'm that teacher in the classroom and I get 20,000, 40,000, double my income, whatever, to become an administrator, and yet I lose my soul in the process, I mean, we need administrators, and there are people who are gifted to do those things.
Yep.
But if a person is really gifted to be a teacher, extra money is not going to, it's not going to make that go away if I forfeit what I'm really good at doing. So I love what you're saying there. It's so good.
And I also want to work to disrupt our current education system, because the reality, like me living in Atlanta right now, almost all of my teacher friends that I know work second jobs to pay the bills. Yeah. So how can we disrupt this system where teachers do make enough money, they do have enough respect, so that they can stay in the classroom?
Yeah, so we could argue here that every single teacher is, we'll just call it undervalued.
100%.
But there are so many great teachers. But everybody who listens to this, we have all these business people. We have lots of teachers who listen as well, but we have all these business people. We have athletes. We have all kind of people that are a part of our show, and yet every single one of them, every single one of us had a teacher. And so teachers are making such a difference in the lives of the next generation. Speak to really why we need teachers. Can you just say a little more about that for the teachers that might be listening, and really the reminder for all of us of how much we should value the teachers?
Yeah, so what I'll say to that is, our students growing up today, obviously, we know, this is a different world. I mean, they're growing up in technology that's changing by the day, if not by the hour. And there's all sorts of social demands associated with that. There's just a lot of pressure, and not that we didn't have pressure when we were kids, but it's just different. And I think it's a hard time for students growing up. So yes, we need teachers teaching English and teaching math, but we are teaching more than our content. We are teaching students. And so when a student sees how I handle failure, if I have a lesson that falls flat, or if, a colleague comes in and they are upset with me or something, and how I handle that, I'm teaching that too. So for students to see people outside of their family unit, teaching them how to deal with life in the everyday just circumstances of life, and also having people in their lives other than their parents who champion them and believe in them and encourage them. Like, we need adults in students' lives outside of their parents, just cheering for them, pushing them, pulling out in them things that they can't see in themselves. And that's what teachers have the power to do and the time to do. I mean, a lot of time, like I would say with some of my students, they see me
more than their parents, or
exactly,
or maybe some of them not even living in a two-parent home. I mean, there's just
exactly. And so I'm able to speak truths into their life that I observe. That's a powerful thing. So that's why we need teachers. I mean, we need all the math equations. Like, yes, we need that, but it goes far beyond that.
Well, truthfully now, as far as teaching goes, they can Google the information.
And they do.
That's right. But it literally, the things you're talking about,
right,
that really is where we make the biggest difference as teachers. So that's huge. Okay, so let's talk literature for a second. You talked about teaching literature, and you've been teaching English/literature really most of your career. Why are great stories so important? You say you're a big reader, big storyteller, you're a big advocate for stories. Why are stories so important? Everybody who's listening, whether we're in school or have been in school or we may have hated our English class, but stories are so important. Talk about that. I know you're passionate about it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power in stories. Stories often can communicate truths in our life that we may have blinders up that we can't see in our own present reality. But when we open a story in a work of fiction to see other people grappling with or thinking through conflict and problems, and when they're confronted with truths in their lives, it's a lot easier to see that in a story as opposed to in our own lives. So I think there's a lot of power in stories to tell truth, to speak truth to us. I think there's a lot of power in stories in that we can see ourselves in, the stories that we're reading. And it's like, oh, I'm not alone. I may have thought I was the only person that thought this way, but here I can, and I may have trouble as a student opening up, or as a person in general, like opening up and sharing like these insecurities and fears, but yet I can open it up and see myself in this character in this book.
And if they overcame,
now
maybe I can
too.
too.
Exactly. And so now I'm not alone. Or maybe not only do we see ourselves in literature and in stories, but stories allow us to see other people as well. And so we can look in and see ourselves, but we can also look out and we can see other people and learn about other people. And it's so like our country is just so polarized right now. And so it's a huge step for me to say, well, I want to think about this idea that's completely different than what I believe. I don't even know who I could talk to, but yet I can open a book and consider the
point of view of someone else. Yeah, that's so good.
Opinions.
That's so good. So you've taught, I don't know, hundreds of books. Would it be safe to say through the years? You've taught a bunch of books. Well, do you have a favorite to teach? Like, is there a story or a piece of literature that you've really enjoyed teaching through the years? And
so I could talk all day about books. I'm going to tell you two that I love to teach, and they're very different.
Okay.
I will start with the canonical work, and then I'll move to the modern work. So I would say the first novel that I love teaching is Frankenstein.
Okay.
I love it. Why did you laugh?
I don't know that I thought that's what you would say. So Frankenstein, tell us about.
Have you read Frankenstein?
I don't think I've read it. I know a little bit. I know Mary Shelley.
Okay,
right? Is
that's good.
That count for anything?
That counts for
I'm
something.
I'm probably not passing this class today. So you tell us why.
So
maybe I need to read it.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
If you've not read it, you need to read it. I love Frankenstein. I think it just hits at so many like core issues of who we are. The relationship between the creator and the created. What responsibilities does the creator have, and me as the creation, and how does this relationship work? Who am I without the creator? Like, there's just so many conversations that you can have down.
That's going on my reading list. That's
down
good.
that path. Like, also, like, Frankenstein deals with the just like pursuit of knowledge at the expense of not thinking about what acquiring all of this knowledge and the responsibility that the knowledge holds. So just this like really prideful pursuit of knowledge, leaving victims in the path, in a path of destruction as you pursue this knowledge.
Almost for knowledge sake or pride's sake or whatever. I mean,
yes, just for pride's sake.
Which is probably important for us to consider, because we are a content world, you know.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff there to think.
Yes.
I'm going to put that on my reading list.
And so like Frankenstein has just like so many connections to just like, you know, ethical, medical issues that we're dealing with today, science and ethic issues. Frankenstein also talks about loneliness and the effects of loneliness.
Which we have just an epidemic of people who are lonely right now, and mental health issues and all kind of challenges. And so, yeah, that's great.
Love Frankenstein.
That's good. And isn't it cool to have a book that was written a long time ago?
Yeah.
But it's timeless. I mean, there's things that are at least to this point, it's been timeless.
And you know, Mary Shelley wrote it as a teenager. Yeah. Like, that's amazing.
Is that not crazy?
To
that's
me,
so good.
That's amazing. So I love that.
I'm gonna read Frankenstein.
So Frankenstein, it is typically I rotate.
That'll be our homework for the audience here, because I'm guessing there's some people who listen and
I
have not read
rotate. You know, my reading list every year, but that typically stays.
So you got a second one you said you enjoy. What?
So, so one thing that my students tell me never take off the reading list is Counting Descent by Clint Smith. Okay. It is a poetry collection. Okay. So I teach a whole collection of poetry, which most students have never read a whole collection of poetry. It's just like, we read Robert Frost here and Emily Dickinson here, and like we pick and choose. So we like read the whole book of Counting Descent by Clint Smith together. So I'm a huge Clint Smith fan. So Counting Descent, 2016, 2017 is probably when it was published. I may be way off on that, so edit that out if that's not right. But it is... Clint Smith was, he is a Black poet, writer, researcher. He just finished his PhD at Harvard. And he was a senior when Hurricane Katrina hit, and he lived in New Orleans. Yeah. So his whole life was disrupted at that point. And he has ended up putting together a collection of poems about growing up Black, about Hurricane Katrina, about he's really close with his family, just the joy in family life. And so this book intersects several current just topics that need to be addressed in the classroom. And what I love about it is it brings in like, these are some of the hard things. Black young men being killed, but also here's a poem about growing up and thinking about Saturday morning breakfast with my mom. And he talks about just the intersection of like hard and good and pain and joy. And, you know, life is usually not one or the other, but it's an intersection of all. And just about how, you know, through Katrina, like there's some hard things with that, but there's some good things that came out of that as well. So my students always love Counting Descent. they're like, don't ever take that off the list.
Okay.
So I love that.
That's good. I've not read that one either. So
and he has a new book out right now called How the Word is Passed.
Okay.
It just came out in June. I had an advanced reader's copy and read it earlier this year. It's amazing.
Is it a book
It's
of poetry?
nonfiction.
Okay, nonfiction.
Nonfiction, and it is like the retelling. It's location based, and it's like Monticello and just all these different places, and it's like just the retelling of some of these different places retold from a slave perspective.
Okay, that's
great book.
That's fascinating. That's great. Okay, so you used the word disruption there a moment ago, and I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, you were kind of rocking and rolling. Things were going well. You'd just been chosen by your peers, which I think says a lot. The Teacher of the Year award that you received, which is cool. And so life is just kind of rocking along. You guys are doing well, and you decide to move. And for context, we're probably 40 miles outside of Atlanta, 30, 40 miles outside of the city. You and your husband, Scott is a coach on our team. He coaches in our business and got a lot of other things that he's done as well. But you and Scott decided, you're empty nested at the time. You have 3 kids. We'll talk family in just a minute. But you decide to leave what you know and move into the city of Atlanta and teach in really one of the most challenging environments in the state. Why did you do that? Give us a because I'm just for context here for our audience. There are people here who are rocking along. They've been playing it maybe safe. Maybe somebody needs to hear this, and it's time to show a little courage. You guys flexed your courage muscle, or maybe you just flexed. Maybe your courage has gotten stronger since you did flex. I think courage does grow when we use that muscle, and when we don't, it just atrophies. And so you and Scott said, we're gonna go do something new, and you have, and it's been just so fun to watch, and I know it's stretched you, but it's been really great for you as well. Okay. Talk about moving to the middle of Atlanta.
Okay, so I in 2017 was the Coweta County Teacher of the Year. Our daughter graduated high school in 2018, and she was our last to graduate, so that was a good time to make a change. I loved working at Northgate High School. The Lord just gave me a lot of favor in people's eyes there. But probably around 2017, I just really felt like there might be something. I really felt the Lord saying, you need to work in the city. And I was like, what? And but that just never went away. I just kept feeling that. And after I became Coweta County Teacher of the Year, which was such an honor, I really felt like I needed to continue growing. And as I love Northgate, but I felt like in order for me to grow, I needed to go to a different environment. Of course, I grow every year because there are different students sitting in front of me, and that forces growth. But I felt like I just wanted to grow in some areas that was going to require me to make a change. And I mean, why not move from the suburbs to an urban school? And part of it, I just love a challenge. And I thought, I think I'm a pretty good teacher here. And I just want to see
do I have what it takes?
If I am a good teacher.
Yeah.
And, I think good teachers are good in any different environment, and I had only tested it in one environment, and I thought, well, let's move to an urban school and let's see
what happens.
See what happens. It's going to really stretch me. It's going to give me a lot of opportunity to grow. And so I I really thought I wanted to go to Grady High School and work. I'd done some consulting work there before and thought that'd be a fun place to work. It's funny how like you give the Lord like this checklist of like, I want to still teach AP, which those AP Lit and those jobs you're just kind of promoted up to. Like you don't really. So I was like, okay, God, I want to teach AP Lit and I want to teach. I'd really like to teach at Grady High School. Like, here's my checklist. And, I thought that probably won't happen. And like in May, the very end of May, I happened to see, it was actually the week of graduation. And I happened to see a posting for an AP Lit teacher at Grady. I called the principal, interviewed, she offered me a job. Like it was a done deal, the whole thing within like 72 hours. And I like to say like the Lord just put me where I'm supposed to be. Now my principal, she tells the story a little differently. I think we'll go with my version, but her version is it was the end of May. We lost a teacher. I was desperate I hired you.
That's good. Okay. So if we got somebody listening and they're going, okay, and it'll be a different context. They'll have to connect their own dots, but they need to stretch and they need to try something hard and they need to push themselves, or maybe they've been very successful. They're thinking about starting a new company, whatever. I don't know. But it hasn't all been lollipops since you've been there. So what's been the hardest thing? And then also there have been some lollipops. So what's been the best part? I mean, like, what's if you do something different, sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's better than you thought it would be, whatever. Give us a little bit of the last 2 or 3 years. What's been hard? What's been good?
So I will say some of the hard part is just having like misconceptions or stereotypes about areas and people. That was one of the reasons I wanted to go there. I felt like I needed to grow. I just needed to learn. Like I knew a lot about white suburbia life, and I felt like I just needed to learn about and get to know other types of people. And if I moved into Atlanta, it would really force that on me. So that has been really good. And that has been really hard because, when you start to get to know people who are different from you, and then start to reconcile like things that you have thought to be true, maybe about other groups of people, and I'm not just talking about race. I'm talking about like our school is very diverse racially, but honestly, it's like, we have race and classism and ideology and religious beliefs. It's diverse in a lot of ways. And so when, I'm talking to people who are different than me, and maybe I've had, thoughts or misconceptions or stereotypes about this particular group of people. And now I see, oh, that's not what I thought. And so I'm having to reconcile like these beliefs that I've held for a while, or blind spots even that I've had in my life, to the truth and reality in front of me. So that's been really good. That has also been really hard because I've just said things before that are just not appropriate to say, and until I'm like face to face with people and that are different than me, like I did not realize that. I also realized that it's really easy to put different groups of people, and again, I'm not just speaking about race, but different groups of people like in this box. And now I'm seeing like people are complex, like I don't want people putting me in the I'm a middle-aged white woman, white suburban woman box. Like I think of myself as more layered and complex than that, but yet that's what I would do with other people and then make assumptions about that. So that's been good and hard, both at the same time.
That's great. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for for chasing greatness in your own life, and more than that, for helping others to be great. Because I think that really is the definition. It's awesome for you to maximize your potential, but man, there's so much joy, as Susan talked about, when you help somebody else do what they're supposed to do. So let's continue to do that. Push this out. If you know a teacher who needs some encouragement, I can't think of anybody better to mentor them or to encourage them than Susan. And so this interview, I think, will be very beneficial for them. Help them grow as you continue to do the things you're doing. We'll see you next week on Chasing Greatness.